Good evening. This is Dr. James coming to you this evening from Shelter Bay on the Swinomish Indian Reservation. Discussion topic today is wisdom. Wisdom can be gained from experience if somebody learns something. Often, as a physician, I have counseled people, I like to call patients people, providing them advice and my best recommendations given their particular situation. However, I often am looking for a teachable moment, and that's why we're here. Can we offer a lesson to gain wisdom? I live here in Shelter Bay on the Swinomish Indian Reservation. Behind our lot is Indian Road, and just over the hill from Indian Road is a place called Pull and Be Damned. In fact, there's a road that says Pull and Be Damned. And I can remember when I was younger, I thought that was a curious name, Pull and Be Damned. I thought it was a little funny because damned is a curse word, or at least it was something that I was taught by my parents not to say. But I could say pull and be damned, and I wondered what that meant. And it may have, all I know is what my dad told me. And what my dad said was on the beach at low tide, at very low tides, there's a mud flat, a very shallow water that drains to a mud flat, and this you could get to Swinomish in the channel over here at the mouth of the river by cutting across near the shore. If you didn't do that, you would have to go the long way around past Seal Rock. And if you didn't time it well, you could end up in your boat sitting upon a mud flat and have to wait for the tide to come back in. And actually, not infrequently, you'll see pictures of sailboats, pleasure crafts, high and dry on the mud flats because they missed the channel and were stranded and literally have to wait for the next high tide, and sometimes for two high tides, because often here the tides are not equal. So one day long ago, there was a couple in a rowboat, and this was not an infrequent. Back before there were even motors, people would have to sail or row your boat to get from place to place. I mean, that was a time when there were no roads, and people traveled by water. And La Conner is one of the oldest towns in the state of Washington, and located on the waterway. So one day, this couple with a man and a woman, and the man was rowing the boat, or another term we use for rowing is pulling. And what my dad said was people could hear on the shore his wife providing him with very loud and explicit instructions, and the instructions were pull and be damned. So we have Pull and Be Damned, which is just over the hill. And like Shelter Bay, Pull and Be Damned is a part of the Swinomish Indian Reservation and on leased land. So back when people had summer cottages, people from mainly, the Seattle area would have a small summer cottage in a very nice location with a waterfront view. And there came a time when the 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 people who owned the land, the natives, the members of the Swinomish Indian Reservation, didn't want to sell the land anymore, because when I was younger, uh, like there's a place over here called Eagle's Nest, and I'd heard over and over again that Dunlap had purchased Eagle's Nest for $10 an acre, and that was considered not a good business decision. So at some point, the natives, the people of Swinomish who own the land, would agree to lease the land rather than sell it. And at some point, no, I'm not. I think it was in the 1970s when the the leases, the individual leases, unlike Shelter Bay, the leases in Pullamy Dam, to my understanding, are individual leases, and they didn't have a 75-year term, and the the tribe or members of the tribe decided that the lease rent should be increased dramatically, and it was a big hardship on the people who lived in Pullamy Dam, and it created a situation where people abandoned some of the people abandoned their homes. Even I've heard of at least one person who physically had the home lifted and moved to another location. And still today, Pullamy Dammed has been, the tribe did restoration, put in an appropriate sewer system, built roads for access, and a good portion of Pullamy Dam lays vacant. Here we have land, buildable lots, and a friend of mine who builds homes saw that and goes, maybe I should. He wanted to build 30 homes in Pullamy Dam. However, what he said was after he had it financially evaluated, it was not economically feasible, i.e., he couldn't make any money building homes on the buildable lots in Pullamy Dam because the lease rent was too high. And I think that there has been an impact on the collected lease monies from Pullamy Dam. I've heard rumors and stories. I mean, it's a small town, and information is frequent and abundant. However, how can you corroborate this stuff? But there is a concern that the checks that people receive from their lease land in Pullamy Dam have been reduced, partially in part to pay for the infrastructure. I assume I have to say that, and it makes sense to me that when you go look at Pullamy Dam, where there are people paying the lease rent in Pullamy Dam, most of those people are on the waterfront because people are willing to pay lots of money for waterfront property. And the homes above and away from the waterfront with obstructed views, if any, many of those lots lay vacant. It's not a big secret. So what's the lesson to be learned from that situation? I know in LaConner, if you look in LaConner, they just converted the Little League field where I played Little League baseball and where I coached my sons playing Little League baseball. It's been a big part of the history of the town of LaConner. However, the economics became such that now they're building, like, it looks like quite a few homes on a very small portion of land, uh, uh, because land in Skagit County is valuable. There's a housing crisis everywhere. They're not making more land. So what is the lesson to be learned? I think that if you go to town and you go to, there's a pub, they call it the Laconner Pub, or the Tavern, we call it the Tavern. It's been there a long time, and just in the next adjacent lot is actually a plot of land in Laconner, where when I was a younger kid, that's where the first tribal offices were, and they had an oyster business, and then it became a open air market. However, now, and you can go tomorrow if you want and look, and it's all boarded up and fenced off and condemned. And one of the stories I heard was that the tribe decided to double the rent, and then the open air market became unsustainable, and now it sits there. I personally used to receive checks from the Bureau of Indian Affairs for leases on land that I owned. And my allotment was in on the north end, in the farmland. And at one time it was the Wilbur family farm. However, I used to get a check for like $250 once a year, until such time that the tribe decided it would increase salmon habitat by allowing salt water so the fish could come in and out into the farmland. And they had a system that was designed such that there would not be saltwater encroachment into the farmland. However, I stopped receiving checks because, to my understanding, what I was told was the salt water did get into the farmland and made the farmland unfarmable. So that did happen, and just because something is currently taken for granted, i.e., in this case, the Shelter Bay community, which has 870 homes on it, which is a large number of homes, and there are other places in Washington State where there's similar situations, like you could name, like say Tulalip, where they basically wanted to take the lease land back, which I believe is happening or has happened. Also another situation, Swinomish, which a smaller number of homes, like 20, 27 or in the 20 area. So the impact of taking back the land or not renewing the lease, and you're not taking back the land. You always had the land. The land is yours. You're just not renewing a lease negotiation. And it's a lot. It's not on the same scale. The other consideration why this is a little different at Swinomish is because the economy of the governmental structure of Swinomish is at a smaller scale than a tribe like Tulalip. For example, Tulalip has 3 casinos, and I don't know how much money Tulalip generates revenue from the casinos, and there's other businesses there as well. But I do know that it's more. It's a lot more. I mean, like, who knows, 10, 20, how many times more? So if you have alternative resources, you can make your business choices which are good for you in your particular situation. So hopefully people understand that something is going to happen in Shelter Bay and is happening in Shelter Bay, and not moving to make a choice can still be a choice. And how much is it worth to you to make a deal? And we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're not at a situation where both sides are willing to do what it takes to make a deal. Whether there is going to be a deal or not. But the reason I'm talking to you is because the decisions that are being made or not made may have a real impact on you, and you deserve to know. If you're an allotee landowner, what do you think? If you own a home in Shelter Bay, what do you think? And hopefully this can bring to light some discussion pieces. Unfortunately, I have had the privilege and honor to talk to people about this, and I remember one conversation in particular. And it usually it's I was talking to this one person who is a tribal member at Swinomish and owns land at Swinomish and receives a check from Shelter Bay for the leasing of his land. And I said, well, Ava and I have decided to agree to work for Shelter Bay and help them navigate the negotiation. And the initial reply was, I can't say it actually, I'll like paraphrase it. F them, F those people, we're gonna take it back. I was like, okay, I mean, we can do that. Do you get a check from the lease monies from Shelter Bay? And the person was like, yeah. I said, do you like getting a check? And he was like, yeah. I said, do you want the tribe to take it over and manage it, your land, and be responsible for paying you? And he was like, F no. And then he talked about like different businesses the tribe has run, which in his estimation hadn't been done well. And even, let's start a conversation about how the casino is run. Let's talk about this over here and let's talk about that over there. And I'm not here to criticize people. However, if something is not done, if agreement is not made, then what I see to project is that Shelter Bay and the Shelter Bay community and the 870 homes of the land here will look more like pull and be damned than what we remember as Shelter Bay. And the reality is something's going to happen, and it affects people, which is why I thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and why I would attempt to talk to you. Sometimes I feel like the guys in movies, man, the ones who are the experts, like Jurassic Park. There's that guy, Jeff Goldblum. I love Jeff Goldblum. He usually plays a character where he's the expert and the guy that nobody seems to want to listen to. So it kind of sets up a dramatic situation where, Jeff Goldblum says something like, well, you should consider this. This could happen. Everybody's like, oh, no, that won't happen. And you could be pretty sure that if Jeff Goldblum says, be careful, something could happen, And then, you're like, okay, well, get the popcorn. It's gonna happen, And the question is, well, if they had listened to him to begin with, then that would have been like the end of the movie. Not very dramatic. I guess the take-home message is, get your popcorn.